6 sold-out comedy shows disappeared overnight. Not because tickets didn't sell, but because a single clip online changed everything. The comedian at the center of it says he was ready to perform. The venue says it had no real choice. And the internet? It turned a moment on stage into a national debate. What actually caused the cancellations? And why safety, not comedy, became the deciding factor is more complicated than the headlines suggest. The situation began after a short video clip from a stand-up performance started circulating widely on social media. The clip, which was posted publicly by the comedian himself, spread rapidly, reaching millions of views in just days. According to publicly available data, the video was viewed more than 8 million times by the end of January. The comedian, Ben Bankas, is known for provocative material and hosts an online talk show with a modest but loyal audience. He was scheduled to perform 6 consecutive sold-out shows at Laugh Camp Comedy Club in St. Paul, Minnesota. At the time, everything appeared normal. Tickets were sold, dates were confirmed. The shows were expected to go forward as planned. Then the venue abruptly canceled all 6 performances. According to reporting from multiple outlets, the viral clip referenced a real, recently deceased individual. The remarks were made shortly after the incident occurred, and while the comments were intended as comedy, many viewers found them deeply offensive. Importantly, the video did not remain confined to comedy audiences. It crossed into mainstream social media, local community groups, and eventually national coverage, placing the upcoming Minnesota shows under intense public attention. At that point, the story shifted. This was no longer just about a comedian or a joke. It became about public reaction, crowd behavior, and risk assessment. Laugh Camp Comedy Club owner Bill Collins later explained that the cancellations were not based on ticket sales or artistic disagreement. Instead, he cited safety concerns. According to his statement, the decision came after discussions with public authorities, legal counsel, internal staff. Collins said that escalating tensions, increased media attention, and reports of potential protests created a situation the club could not responsibly manage. In his words, the risks to guests, staff, and performers were simply too high. For a small venue, he explained, there were not enough resources to mitigate those risks effectively. Here's where things get more complicated. The club didn't just lose shows, it reportedly lost money. And the comedian? He says he was still willing to perform, so why did this decision escalate into an even bigger dispute? According to local reporting, the club owner estimated the cancellations could cost the venue around $17,000. At the same time, the comedian's talent agency, Creative Artists Agency, or CAA, reportedly insisted that the club fully compensate Bankas, arguing that he was prepared to fulfill his obligations. Collins also stated that CAA would not allow other clients to perform at the club until the matter was resolved. CAA has not publicly commented on the situation. This detail matters because it highlights that the conflict extended beyond public opinion. It entered contractual and professional territory. After the cancellations became public, Bankas addressed the situation in a separate video posted online. In that clip, he told an audience that his Minnesota shows had been canceled. The crowd reacted loudly, expressing frustration with the decision. Bankas criticized the club and indicated that he was working on securing alternative venues and dates. From his perspective, the cancellation was not about safety. It was about pressure. From the venue's perspective, it was about responsibility, and neither side appears willing to fully back down. All of this unfolded during a period of heightened tension in Minnesota. Multiple demonstrations were already taking place in the region related to recent law enforcement-involved incidents that had drawn national attention. Public gatherings, protests, and counter-protests were already putting strain on local resources. Local residents told reporters they were prepared to demonstrate outside the comedy club if the shows went forward. That information, according to Collins, played a role in the final decision. So this wasn't just about one video, or even one comedian. It was about how fast online content can reshape real-world events, how venues calculate risk in a hyper-connected environment, and how comedy, controversy, and community safety collide. But there's still one key question left unanswered. Was this cancellation about protecting people or about avoiding backlash? That's where the story gets even more layered. At the center of this situation is a difficult line that venues, Performers and audiences all navigate differently. On one side is freedom of expression, especially in stand-up comedy, a medium that often relies on provocation, discomfort, and boundary pushing to make a point. On the other is operational responsibility, the obligation venues have to ensure a safe environment for staff, guests, and performers, regardless of intent. Laugh Camp Comedy Club did not publicly accuse Bankas of wrongdoing. They did not ban him permanently. They did not criticize his career. Instead, they framed their decision as situational, a response to the specific timing, context, and reactions surrounding the viral clip. That distinction is subtle but important, because if this wasn't about silencing comedy, why did it still feel like censorship to so many people? According to event security experts, viral attention can dramatically alter risk calculations, even when no explicit threats are made. Large crowds, heightened emotions, unpredictable attendance behavior. When content reaches millions of viewers in a short period of time, especially content tied to emotionally charged real-world events, venues often reassess plans that would otherwise seem routine. In this case, the clip circulated far beyond the comedian's core audience. It entered spaces where the context of stand-up comedy was lost, replaced by short, isolated moments. That loss of context is often where tension begins. Reports indicated that some residents in the St. Paul area were organizing or considering protests near the scheduled performances. Even peaceful demonstrations can present logistical challenges for small venues. Crowd control, staffing limitations, coordination with local authorities. For larger theaters, these risks can sometimes be absorbed. For a small comedy club, they can't. This appears to be a key factor behind the club's statement that it lacked the resources to manage the situation safely. Supporters of Bankas argue that canceling the shows rewarded online outrage and set a precedent where performers can lose work due to viral backlash rather than on-stage conduct alone. From this perspective, the cancellation wasn't neutral. It was reactive. To them, the safety explanation feels incomplete, especially given the tickets were sold and the performer was willing to appear. This split in interpretation is what keeps the story alive, and this is where the debate expands beyond one club. Because similar situations have been unfolding across entertainment, sports, and public speaking, all driven by the same force: virality. When does a venue's responsibility override a performer's booking? There is no universal rule. Contracts often include clauses related to force majeure, public safety, or unforeseen circumstances. But these clauses are interpreted case by case. In this instance, the club owner emphasized that the decision was not ideological, but practical. However, once agencies, media outlets, and public opinion became involved, the situation quickly moved beyond a simple business call. CAA's reported involvement elevated the conflict from a local dispute to an industry-level standoff. Agencies are designed to protect their clients' interests. Venues are designed to protect their operations. When those priorities collide, outcomes often depend less on who is right and more on who can withstand the pressure. At the moment, neither side appears eager to concede, so what began as a short clip online evolved into canceled performances, financial consequences, agency involvement, and a broader cultural debate. But there's still one crucial piece missing. How does this end? And what does it mean for performers and venues going forward? That's where the final part of this story takes shape. As of the latest publicly available information, the 6 Minnesota shows remain canceled. The comedian has indicated he is seeking alternative venues and dates, while the club has maintained that the decision was made solely due to safety and liability concerns. No legal action has been publicly announced, no formal settlement has been disclosed, and no permanent ban has been issued by the venue. What remains is a standoff shaped more by timing and attention than by contracts alone. But this situation isn't unique. It's becoming a pattern, and that's what makes it bigger than one comedian or one club. Stand-up comedy used to exist primarily in rooms, where tone, timing, and audience context mattered. Today, a single clip can travel far beyond that room in seconds. Short-form platforms compress performances into moments, removing set-up audience interaction. Intent, when that happens, material designed for a specific space can take on a completely different meaning elsewhere. Venues now have to consider not just what happens inside their walls, but how content connected to their events lives online. For clubs like Laugh Camp, the question is no longer, will the show sell tickets? It's, can we safely manage everything that might happen around it? That includes demonstrations, online attention, staffing strain, reputational risk. None of these factors require wrongdoing to be present, only heightened visibility. Despite the cancellations, Bankas continues to perform elsewhere and maintains an online audience through his podcast and social platforms. The controversy has increased his visibility, but whether that translates into long-term opportunity or long-term limitation remains unclear. Historically, similar situations have produced mixed outcomes, depending on how performers adapt and how audiences respond over time. And that uncertainty is the real takeaway. Because the next time a clip goes viral, the same questions will come up again. This story isn't about deciding who won or lost. It's about how quickly modern entertainment can collide with public response, and how decisions are made in the space between art, business, and community safety. No single party fully controls that process anymore. Not the comedian, not the venue, not even the audience. Virality does. As more performances move between live rooms and online feeds, situations like this are likely to become more common, not less. If you want a deeper look at how viral moments are reshaping live entertainment and what that means for future events, that's where this conversation continues.